All right, welcome everyone. Members of the public are advised that the meeting will be recorded and a recording of the meeting will be made publicly available on YouTube and Council's website. I'd like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, who are the traditional custodians of this land, and pay our respects to their elders, both past, present, and emerging, and acknowledge that the land here is just as important to the Wurundjeri people today as it ever was in the past. We'll move on to apologies. We've got two apologies, one from Councillor Egan and one from Councillor Duffy. Do I have a mover to note the apologies? Councillor Eyre, and a seconder? Councillor Perkins. Councillor Eyre, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you. I'd just like to note that Councillor Duffy is in hospital and Councillor Egan is unwell, and we wish them well with their recovery.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Councillor Perkins? Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Item 4 is confirmation of the minutes. Do I have a mover? Councillor Payne.
Yes, I'm happy to move the minutes of the Planning and Consultation Committee meeting held on Tuesday, 13th of April 2021 be confirmed.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. And a seconder? Councillor Stockman. Councillor Payne, would you like to speak to that? Councillor Stockman. Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. All right, item 5, disclosure of conflicts of interest. I'd like to disclose a conflict of interest in relation to the PCC 006 Arts and Cultural Advisory Committee membership endorsement, as I have a close working relationship with one of the applicants. So I'll be leaving the room for that item. Are there any other conflicts of interest? All right, we will move on to the budget submissions. So we've got 3 speakers tonight and 3 people have sent through written submissions which I will read out. But we'll start with the people who are here in person. So I'd like to invite Henry Hasler to come and speak. Thanks, Henry. You've got 3 minutes.
Good evening, councillors. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. As a prelude to our more specific comments in our submission, I want to remind all of us of the budget legacy of the previous council through its 2 grandstanding rates decisions. As Councillor Perkins pointed out then, he was sitting here, and at the particular decision, it's brained into my brain. You pointed and looked angrily at the other side, and you made the point that these decisions have put Nillumbik on a permanent path that's lower in rates and revenue than it would have been otherwise, and you're absolutely correct. I've estimated, for what it's worth, that the loss of income of $2.5 million a year, or $25 million over the 10 years that we're looking at in this budget. We can never, ever recover that income. If you want to debate that point, I'm happy to do it. As a measure of the problem, we're having to borrow $7 million this year to do the things that the council thinks needs to be done. And I should say, in saying all that FON is not an advocate of higher rates. What we're looking for is sustainable, fiscally responsible rates that are set at levels that meet the council's obligations and the needs and aspirations of our residents. I know that's a bit of a motherhood phrase, but look, there's no better way, I think, that I can summarise it. Against that backdrop, our submission was essentially concerned with transparency and community engagement. Let me start with traders parking. That was information in the fees and charges on traders parking was hidden out of sight, I think because of an embarrassment at the $21 a year that it was back in about 2017, 6 cents a day. But it's now come back into the limelight, and I congratulate council and council officers for the fact that that's come forward, and the fact that the rate's been increased to $100 a year. FON is conscious of the fact that council is still working through some of the issues to do with day parking rate or hourly parking rates, and we're pleased to see that's ongoing. But our main point here is that $100 is still pretty damn cheap parking. On the budget process, one of the things that concerns FOM is that it's not possible to implement our suggestion to bring forward the calendar year opportunity for community engagement in the process, so that things are not fobbed off, perhaps out of necessity, with the comment that, look, it's too late in the budget cycle, we can't possibly touch this particular problem. That happened to the the Wattle Glen Residents Association with the footbridge they wanted over a creek. I've forgotten the name of the creek. And under the present suggestion, even modest expenditures like that, under 200 grand according to their submission initially, is just put off, and they're still waiting. So I'm hoping that our suggestion that we bring forward the budget, opening the budget to community consultation to the beginning of the year, does not end up with the same result that the Wattle Glen people had, that we're waiting forever. Schedule of fees and charges. Now, Vince Lombardi and I...
Sorry, Henry, that's time. I'll give you 10 seconds to wrap up.
Schedule of fees and charges is unnecessarily complex, unnecessarily doesn't include information which should be known as of last July, and our suggestion is to fix that up. We know that, 10 seconds, I'm bad at maths. I know that it's not possible to do it all in one hit, but I think we could do better than that.
Thanks, Henry. All right. Any questions for Henry? Councillor Perkins.
I've got a question of the CFO first, if that's okay. And to Vince or to Mel, Henry made a statement about, I don't want to prosecute previous councils because I was on a few of them. But Henry talked about $2.5 million per annum in lost revenue, or $25 million over 10 years. Does that sound a bit right?
Thank you. If I can respond to that through the chair, that loss in revenue, it's based on the increase in rates per year. So when there's a zero rate increase, so we take the example of the first zero rate, which was a foregoing of approximately 2 million, then that 2 million doesn't compound each year. It is a fraction of the rate of the rate cap each year thereafter. So it wouldn't be 25 million over 10 years. It would be significantly less. We can take that question on note and work it out, but there is a loss in revenue which does compound, which cannot be recovered through the rate cap regime.
Could I just add Chairman, with your permission, that I do have somewhere in the bowels of my computer a spreadsheet where I worked this out. I acknowledge that it was a back of an envelope kind of calculation, but I did try to be reasonable about it.
Thanks, Henry. Any other questions, Councillor
Henry,
Perkins?
your calculation was around the 4 years of rate discounts, or was it just the last year?
No. I took the two. I went back and I took the two freezers, and as I say, I haven't looked at this spreadsheet. I'm sorry, I should have, but anyway, I haven't for at least a year. Took the two freezers and kind of dropped the path of the future trajectories, and then compounded with rate cap increases that might occur, and then just sort of it came to 2.5 million. I think I did it two ways, and 2.5 million was about in the middle.
Yeah, I think I've certainly heard figures of in excess of 2 million anyway. Whether it comes up to 2.5, but it gets more each year. The
bottom point is that it's a substantial amount of money, and I did say, with your permission, that we can never recover it. And the reason I say we could never recover it is because, yes, maybe next year, if the government stopped its rate capping, we could say, oh, bugger it, we'll put the rates up 10%. But we could put the rates up 10% even on the higher path if we wanted to. So philosophically, logically, I don't think you can ever get back to it. We're done.
Okay. Thanks, Henry. Any other questions? Councillor Eyre?
Henry, you mentioned that there's information missing. Can you elaborate on what sort of information is missing?
Okay, well, we did say in our submission that, and this was to do with the schedule of fees and charges, which I'm prepared to put a bet not very many people have spent as much time studying as Bill Lord and I did earlier about a year ago. But it's 1,037 lines of spreadsheet lines. I counted them in a spreadsheet. I think the information is unnecessarily obtuse. There are council determined fees and charges is no problem, because they're set in dollars per room or dollars per hour or something, absolutely transparent, and we've got nothing to say about that. But then there are the statutory fees, some of which are recorded at the top of the schedule. I've forgotten what they're to do with, but at the top of the schedule, they're referred to as monetary fee units. And they're referred to as monetary fee units both for now 2021 and this proposed period 21-22. I can understand why for 21-22 we can't do much more than say that, because the number depends on the decision that a government has yet to make. So unless somebody in council is a brilliant forecaster, that's not sure. But the information for the previous year, the year we're currently in, that was known in July. Council officers have been charging those rates for ever since the 1st of July. So I can't see why that isn't put into the schedule. Okay, there is another one. There is another one that is specified as so many dollars plus CPI, and that appears identically also for the two years. Now, for the previous year that's just gone, in fact, technically speaking, it's true, but the CPI rate, let's say there's a fee of $1,030 plus CPI is what's written there. And the fact is that last year the government set the CPI rate as 0. So the fee was $1,030. So that it's possible to put that number in absolutely precisely. Again, we don't know what it will be for this year because the government has still got to set that CPI rate. So there's, what I'm saying is that there's this unnecessary lack of information in there, and so some of it is unnecessarily the dollars plus CPI and the monetary fee units things that I think essentially decided on the same way, and I can't understand why they're written in different ways. Okay, so I think that's about it.
Thanks, Henry. Any other questions from councillors? All right, thank you, Henry.
Thank you.
We'll move on to Eltham Community Action Group, and I've got here, it's either Carlotta or Sue. It's Sue? Okay, so I'll invite Sue Dyatt to speak for Eltham Community Action Group. Thanks, Sue. The microphone's already on. You've got 3 minutes.
We've just seen a demonstration of why Nillumbik is such a wonderful place to live. You don't have to know everything yourself, but you can understand when somebody else has a handle on it and you trust them and that they're going to try and explain it to you. We have experts. If you want to know about butterflies, you can find them. And if you want to know anything about money, Henry's your person. Now, having said that, there has been a lot said about why do council this time choose to do a budget without a philosophy behind it. I have heard different ways of it being explained to me, and quite frankly, I would have thought everyone can chew gum and walk. Other councils have chosen to do them concurrently, and Nillumbik has chosen, and I don't know the reason why. I've had some explained to me. But we were in a position of having a totally different formation of council, we hope, now than before. And the council is choosing, quite rightfully, to go and ask the community what they want. But at some stage there comes a time when you are leaders, and going out and looking at convoluted questionnaires that was an interesting questionnaire to fill out. Maybe takes more time and effort than going out and talking with groups of people. I do sound as though I'm chiding you, I'm sorry, but it's true. You are here as representatives of the community and need to go out and make certain that you understand in your hearts what different aspects of the community are talking. Yes, some people you will never find as a group, and therefore surveys should always happen. The other thing that I'd like to hark on is please explain in very simple language to your ratepayers why their rates have gone up. A simplified version of Henry's speech. And doing it by social media is rather like the old-fashioned town crier. You go out and you say what you have to say, but it's fine if you're there listening. Not everybody is choosing Nillumbik Shire Council social media as the go-to place every day. But everybody will receive either electronically or in a piece of paper the rates. And that's where you need to explain Henry's philosophy and hopefully yours, why it is so. Please. I think I've run out of time.
You have run out of time, but I gave Henry extra time, so got to be fair. Any questions from councillors? Jeff? Oh, sorry, Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Sue. So you're suggesting that we add something to the rates notice? Because I think we're limited in what we can actually put in the rates notice and in the envelope and in the actual form itself.
Is there if you're only allowed to put the rates notice into the envelope, then you've got a problem. You have to send out 2 notices, don't you, that hit at the same time. It's not beyond some way of dealing with
I'm
this.
currently working on a video that explains rates, and like the town crier, when the town hears, there'll be a lot of crying when they hear the rates go up. So, yeah.
I agree, yes.
Yeah.
But do remember that not everybody's in the town square when the town crier is crying.
Sure. True.
Can I just turn to the CFO again and ask, we did have something in our rates notice last time that spoke about the projects that were being funded. Could you talk to that possibility?
Through the chair, so as part of the annual rates notice, there is the possibility of adding in a mayor's message, which has been done in the past, so that could be a form of communication with all the ratepayers.
Peter, over to you.
Councillor Perkins said we will do it with his mic off. Any other questions from councillors?
Thank you.
One more, Sue.
It's not so much a question, it's more a comment, but I'll try and make it a question because that's what I need to do. But I think it's important to have simple words so that, but not too simple, because we need to acknowledge that the community are very knowledgeable and highly educated. So it needs to be a good balance. How do you see that working?
That whoever drafts it, I'm sorry to council officers, they will use council officers speak. I would suggest that people take it home and ask their next door neighbour to read, or lots of next door neighbours, to read what you have written and do you understand it. Clarity is important. We all theoretically speak English, but people see things differently.
Thanks, Sue. Any other questions? No, awesome. Thank you, Sue. We will move on to the final speaker, Carlotta Quinlan.
Is that on? Yes.
You've got 3 minutes.
Thank you. It's much the same as the other 2 speakers have said, I guess. So the general comments, not specific as to different amounts. Yeah, the first one being the fact that the budget has come out before the council plan. I look back, well, the 2021-22 draft budget on page 11 states, each contributes to the, talking about the categories, each contributes to the achievement of one of the 5 strategic objectives as set out in the council plan for 2017 to 2021. The last council, as we know, came in sort of on the ground running, and some councillors at least sort of, you know, substantial changes had been made within weeks, if not minutes, of hitting the ground. So their budget, looking them up tonight, the 2017 to 18 budget, the draft was open for consultation from the 5th of May to the 2nd of June. And the introduction said the 2017-18 budget has been prepared in conjunction with the development of the council plan and strategic resource plan for 2017 to 21. The council plan 2017 to 21, living in the landscape, date the 2nd of May 2017, distribution public draft. So presumably they went out at the same time, and people were frantically trying to discuss both. But I mean, so maybe there wasn't much time to discuss and make any changes apart from some maybe minor tweaks as to what was in the budget, but at least it looked as if they were going together. And yeah, excuse me, this council, as I think the others have said, we assumed had, there were some things that obviously you have to continue with, but the philosophies and policies that you were brought in on were somewhat different to the last. So I mean, to me, it seems that the last budget, or the last plan, is really lasting for 5 years because you don't have another one. So that means you have 3 years of your policies. Maybe the next council could do that, but if, as so often happens in Eltham and Nillumbik, it's like that, then they probably won't. So, you know, you've got less than you should have. The next point was just that Nillumbik's a Greenwed Shire, and those strategic objectives don't mention the environment at all, really. I think there's one, which I said in my submission, where it mentions safe and healthy environments, healthy and safe communities enjoy living in our iconic environment. And that's about all that it says. So while you can still bring the environment in underneath that, obviously, you know, you need to have the overarching themes to mention the things that are important. Otherwise, people can say, well, you know, well, it's not there. Why didn't you put it in the overarching themes? It can't be that important to you. Oops, sorry. And the last one was just, as Sue said, yes, explain it. You know, people bag council. It seems to be, you know, council hardly ever gets praised unless it's lowering the rates. So you really do need to explain if it was something from the last council, if it was spending the reserves as, I'm not a mathematician, but if it was from spending reserves that you now have to find the money for, or if it was whatever it was doing, please say why, because us will be standing up for you, would like to have that there to say, yes, this is why the rates are higher. This is why we're paying more for waste management, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Payne.
Thanks, Carlotta. Would you have us imitate the governance style of the previous council?
Sorry?
Would you have us imitate the governance style of the previous council? I detect an air of impatience about we're doing things fast enough.
No, I'm saying that they came in and they, by the way they did the budget, etc., they have really given themselves 5 years. You're giving yourself really 3 years. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm not sure that that's actually going to be the case, but we are. Anyway.
Well, if you're voted out and another, you know, sort of the usual in Nillumbik over every few years, then presumably if people work like that, then you may not have the amount of influence that you possibly could. Does that make sense? It's not a... Sorry.
Thanks,
it's not,
Carlotta.
it's not a... It's a comment, basically. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions from councillors? No. Okay. Thank you, Carlotta. All right. That's all the speakers who are here speaking in person. We've got 3 more whose submissions I will read out now. The first is from Betty Russell. And Betty has written, "Thanks for the opportunity to make the following points. Number 1, basing the first budget for this council on the council plan of the previous council represents a serious shortchanging of voters. It gives us 5 years of the previous council's strategic goals and values, leaving only 3 years for this council's 4-year term. I note that the neighbouring Greenwedge Shire of Yarra Ranges and also the Greenwedge City of Whittlesea are both developing their council plans along with their annual budget. Why aren't we? Did the councillors understand they had this option? The purpose of the budget, page 10, is a part of a 4-year plan to help council to achieve the strategic objectives described in the council plan. It is unreasonable to assume this refers to the current council's 4-year plan. The use of the last council's budget is not transparent. The budget document states on page 3 that the 2021-22 budget has been prepared in conjunction with the council plan, but does not state which council plan. So the natural assumption of a reader would be that it is to this council's plan. The council plan drives the budget, according to the requirements of the Local Government Integrated Strategic Planning and Reporting Framework, also noting that the timing of each component is critical to its success. 2. Improving biodiversity needs a major initiative to map, measure, monitor and enhance the Shire's biodiversity. It is difficult to fit that to the values of the last council, but might hopefully be a natural fit to this council's, if only we had this council plan to fit it to. 3. Funding for COVID-related programs, economic, health and social, should be included in the initiatives. 4. Funding for regeneration of degraded land should be a major initiative, but the section Property Land Improvements shows $0 allocated. 5. Could a note be included as to how estimates for the cost of capital works are determined? For example, is the Eltham North soccer pitch replacement cost of $635,000 based on a guess or serious costing? 6. Could percentages of increases or decreases of rates and fees be shown together, please? Many thanks, Betty Russell. So that is Betty's submission. The next is from Gilla Schnapp. And Gilla has written, "Please table this presentation and its attachments as an example. Justice does not date. Contrary to the officer's response to submissions, it is our view that Council did not openly and transparently review the flawed, unbalanced and inequitable 2020 Diamond Creek Major Activity Centre Structure Plan. The Activity Centre Structure Plan in 2006 was the first to divide Diamond Creek and begin the process whereby the old original areas of this suburb, with its town centre of Shute Street Precinct 1 being erased or discarded in favour of a new Diamond Creek east of the railway line. The true urban history, identity and sense of place for original Diamond Creek are lost, as well as the planned urban growth to its north. Likewise, the utility, infrastructure and interrelated urban planning mistakes and anomalies and irregularities for the area are being dismissed. The 2020 plan reinforced and significantly intensified the imbalance without the public being fully aware of the impacts. Major equity issues cannot be ignored. We believe there are questions that remain regarding the official process of the structure plan, from its initial public display in 2019 through to its passing by Council in 2020. This is not a case of the new replacing the old, particularly in Diamond Creek's case, where it was to be the main location of population growth for the Shire until 2020. The new housing strategy must come before the structure plan. The businesses, investors, residents and school of original Diamond Creek will all be negatively impacted now and into the future by the flawed, unfair structure plan. We therefore implore every councillor in the public interest to support an amendment for the budget to include funds for the plan to be re-exhibited. We believe the sentiment from public submissions shows an inadequate level of public consultation for the council plan associated with the draft budget and request further public engagement and consultation that is then used to inform the draft plan. Gilla Schnapp, and on behalf of owners or stakeholders of I won't read out the address. Gilla has given the address in there. And I believe that is Gilla's submission. To be so it does continue. Oh no, I've read that. Yeah, okay. So that is Gilla's submission, and the final is from Esther Caspi. And Esther has written this to be read by CEO Carl Cowie, but I'm reading submissions today. So it is not good enough to dismiss requests to fix zoning mistakes, anomalies and irregularities. These need instead equitable mediation, even if on a site-to-site basis. Amendments and adjustments to planning schemes are an ongoing process. Whether due process has been followed is not the only issue for this new council. They also have a duty of care and trust to act in good conscience fairly for all. This is in accordance with the principles of the new community engagement policy and their pledge to the community prior to every council meeting. It saddens me that the Diamond Creek Church, the funeral parlour, the fitness centre, the preschool, the dentist, and other businesses of original Diamond Creek suburb adjoin the MAC boundary, but are not included. I therefore support the requests made to provide funds in this budget for the re-exhibition of and further public consultation on the contentious 2020 Diamond Creek Major Activity Structure Plan. This includes written notifications to all those impacted so their views can be considered and accommodated. The new part of Diamond Creek should complement the old, not diminish or disadvantage it. And that is Esther's submission. We can't take questions for submitters who weren't here, so that concludes the speakers, and I will ask for a mover. Councillor Payne.
Yes. I'd like to move the recommendation that the committee, acting under delegation from Council, 1, recommends the adoption of the 2021-2022 budget at the 25th of May 2021 Council meeting. 2, receives and notes the submissions received in respect of the draft budget 2021-2022 in accordance with Section 96 of the Local Government Act 2020. And 3, considers the matters contained in the submissions and the committee's report during finalisation of the budget.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Perkins. Councillor Payne, would you like to speak to that?
No.
Councillor Perkins?
Yeah, I will. Just to firstly, thank the submitters. I might make a couple of points on some of the comments made. Henry, certainly, I think it's certainly over $2 million in compounding each year that council doesn't have that rate revenue it would have otherwise had. That's a significant amount of money, and we indeed will never recover from that. The timing of the budget process will certainly take on your comments and certainly hear what you've said about the Friends of is it Friends of Wattle Glen or the Friends of Pepper's Paddock, I think it is, about Wattle Glen.
I'm not associated with them. They're just an example.
Yeah, but we're happy to receive budget submissions at any time throughout the year. In terms of putting stuff on the plan for the future. I certainly take on the point. I think council takes on the point you've said about the timing of our council plan and the budget. The advice that we did receive and went with was we wanted to inform the council plan as best we could, and the process was our people, our place, our future, where 1,000 voices were sought to be heard. Apparently 2,000 have been submitted. So that will help inform the budget process into future years. But I think we did have that opportunity for the council plan to be adopted a bit later, through the changes in the Local Government Act, and I think COVID had an impact on that as well. The clear messaging that Sue spoke about, I certainly understand what you're saying there, Sue. There often is a lot of bureaucratic speak. We'll try to get a mayor's message or a letter into that rates notice and explain exactly where we are, why we're where we are, and where that money's being spent. What have I written here? The freezing of the rates. It's interesting speaking to some of the staff over the years that the rates team have had no reprieve in complaints about rates. When we freeze rates or go under the rate cap. Some people have thought that was a smart political move. I think the majority of us knew it wasn't, and was short-sighted, and certainly the staff didn't receive any benefit in a decrease in complaints about rates in Nillumbik. I think Gilla spoke about Old Diamond Creek and New Diamond Creek, and her wish to have the Diamond Creek structure plan re-exhibited, and a little bit of history on Diamond Creek. Originally it was called Nillumbik, and it was included in the area claimed by John Batman's Port Phillip Association in 1835, and it's true that that area that is Shute Street was the original Diamond Creek from 1835, and then the rail line came through from Eltham and went from Eltham to Hurstbridge, and that was 1912. So that's still, and that's when Diamond Creek expanded over the Diamond Creek and towards the Hurstbridge rail line, and that second part of Diamond Creek built up on the other side of the floodplain and the reserves. But Gilla and Esther constantly talk about...
That's time, Councillor Perkins. I'll give you 10 seconds to wrap up.
Constantly talk about Old Diamond Creek and New Diamond Creek, but they're talking about 1912, and that's when the new Diamond Creek propped up, and it's 110 years ago now.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Would any other councillors like to speak? Or, Councillor Eyre.
Thank you. Like Mayor was saying, he picked up some points. I've also got some points. It's opportunities to explain and update to community on why rates have gone up and using plain English, and I think that's really important, and to be smart about the way we include that information so that we're not only saving on the rate spending, but we're utilising our opportunities. That where possible, that information be filled in as per Henry's suggestion as well, and that we look at the possibility of reviewing the Diamond Creek structural plan. I don't know if that's at all possible, but I acknowledge that was in there. And I have one other point here, that, no, I don't. That's all I really wanted to say, but thank you for coming, spending the time reviewing it. It's a big document. Appreciate that our community is really wanting to live in a place that makes you feel content and happy, and obviously the rates is all part of that, and knowing that your hard-earned money is spent properly, and I'll continue to be looking at that. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillors? I'll just speak quickly. I think I'll echo what Councillor Eyre said, that it is a long document, and it's a very difficult document to read and get your head around, and I'd just like to thank all the speakers tonight and everyone else who submitted for really taking the time to read it and understand it, which I think is very impressive, that we've got members of this community who care enough to take that time and do that work. So thank you all for that. I think Sue's point about putting it in plain language and making it nice and easy for people to understand is important, and that's something we could work on. I also take the point that it is based on the previous council's plan, and I understand it's not ideal, and I think all of us have got the things we want to do. We've got the things that the community elected us to do, and we want to do those things, and we want to put them in a plan. And have a budget based on that so we can actually achieve what we want to achieve. So I completely agree it's not ideal to have it in this order, but I'm also glad that we are taking the time to do our plan thoroughly and well. I think if a council rushes to get the plan done early, then there's a chance, especially when you've got 5 new councillors, all of whom are finding their feet, still learning how things work. There's a big potential for us to miss the things that we want to actually put in the plan, and down the track look back and regret doing the plan so quickly. So I think that's sort of contributed to why we're delaying the plan for almost the maximum amount of time allowed by the Local Government Act, but it means we can do a more thorough, well thought out plan. That's everything I had to say. So I will put the motion to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. All right, that brings us to the Arts and Cultural Advisory Committee membership endorsement. I'd just like to declare again that I have a conflict of interest in relation to this item, as I have a close working relationship with one of the applicants. So I'm going to step out of the room now. Councillor Eyre will be taking on the chair for this item. So I'd like to invite Councillor Eyre to come and take the chair.
The next item tonight is the Arts and Cultural Advisory Committee membership endorsement for 2021 to 2023. I note we have no registered speakers for this item. Do I have a mover for the recommendation?
I'll move that.
Councillor Payne, thank you.
So I'd like to move the recommendation that the committee, acting under delegation from Council 1, endorses the 6 nominees recommended for appointment to the Arts and Cultural Advisory Committee and the Arts and Cultural Advisory Committee nominations 2021 to 23 recommendation report, which is attached. 2, acknowledges and thanks all community members who submitted expressions of interest to the Arts and Cultural Advisory Committee. 3, resolves that the Arts and Cultural Advisory Committee nominations 2021-23 recommendation report remain confidential on the grounds specified in the definition of confidential information in section 3(1)(f) of the Local Government Act 2020. And 4, resolves that the successful nominees be named.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Payne, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just to say that this is, as a new councillor, my first experience of reading the reports of the many people who nominated themselves for the Arts and Cultural Advisory Committee. These are terrific people, and it was a very difficult, down-to-the-point scoring exercise. I think we are lucky to have such enthusiastic people who want to be on this advisory committee, and I look forward to working with the committee to see how we can enhance arts and cultural events in the Shire.
Councillor Perkins, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I'd just like to echo the comments of Councillor Payne, and certainly 16 nominations were received effectively for 6 positions. They're all good nominations, and this is very highly sought after to get onto this advisory panel, or advisory committee. So, yeah, it speaks a lot for the status of this committee in the community, and the status of the arts. It's probably since being Mayor again that I've been, I think, in the last 3 months to Montserrat about 5 times, and really enjoying it. There's been some great events that council's been involved in or supported or hosted, and yeah, I'm very happy that I'm Deputy Chair to Jeff on the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee. So yeah, happy to endorse the 6 nominations that are successful, and look forward to working with them for the next 12 months at least on that committee. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? Any other councillors? No? Only one? Thank you. I'd like to also acknowledge the great work that the Arts Advisory Committee and all those that aren't on the advisory committee do for the community. It's an amazing place, Nillumbik, and we are known for our arts. And I think if we took that away, we certainly wouldn't be who we are. So thank you to all those who nominated. I'd now like to put the motion to a vote. All in favour? Carried unanimously. I'll now call Councillor Ramtram. Okay.
Yes, I'd like to read out the names if I can. Am I required just to read the names of the entire motion again? Just the names. The 6 nominees are Hannah Zreikat, Jonathan Crowther, Sandra Miller, Liesl Schnukel, Dennis Cord and Cassie May. And congratulations to all of the 6 who have made it onto the Arts and Cultural Advisory Committee.
I can now call Councillor Ramtram back to the meeting.
All right. So there are no urgent reports, no supplementary business, and no confidential reports. So I declare the meeting closed at 7:46 p.m. Thank you, everyone.